Tony, I talked to Peyton Manning recently. He was so funny. I said there was a view that, you ran the offense and Tony ran the defense, and he was the head coach. And I said, tell me the first time you and Tony locked horns. And he told a funny story. He goes, he came to me. He said, Peyton, stop throwing interceptions right now.
I don't know if I put it exactly that way, but we did have a discussion. And I said, hey, Peyton, we are an explosive offense. We're going to continue to be explosive, but we've got to take care of the football. He didn't understand that totally. He didn't grasp it, and it came slowly but surely. And 2002 was my first year there. Kind of bought into it a little bit. 2003, 2004, he goes 49 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. That's when it clicked, and that's when we became a team you had to be reckoned with.
It is interesting because, Tony, I like guys. Tom Brady, he'll throw picks. Eli Manning, Big Ben, Brett Favre. What is the line, Tony, where you don't want to dissuade a talent like Lamar Jackson? I want him to run. He may fumble occasionally. Like, what's the line for you as a coach? What you'll tolerate and what will drive you nuts?
The line is you can't turn the ball over. You've got to take care of the football. And that's what you've got to get across to them. Interceptions are going to happen. Fumbles are going to happen. But everybody's got to take that. It's not, hey, it's okay. And, yeah, we took some shots, and so we lost the ball here. It's no big deal. It is a big deal. And when you get to that point and it's important, that's when you're going to be good. And all great quarterbacks have that.
It's really interesting. Sean McVay a few years ago refused to play starters in preseason. And they went 8-0 to start. And the NFL's a little bit of a copycat league, and a lot of these young coaches now, they just won't play starters. Now, Arians will, Tomlin will, Belichick will.
The old school guys.
Right. Now, Bill Polian told me once, Tony, he felt you needed 3 weeks of hitting, intense hitting. But that doesn't necessarily mean 3 weeks of games. Where do you land today on scrimmages, practices, preseason game participation?
I think there's a conditioning factor that comes in. I'm watching these games the first week, and I'm seeing mistakes in the fourth quarter, turnovers, fumbles, false starts that come from fatigue. So how much do we get that out of you by playing and practicing? That's important. I can tell you this. If I told Peyton Manning, you aren't going to play all preseason and you're not going to get any live reps, he wouldn't be happy with that because he felt like he needed them to get himself ready to go.
So elite players, your Ray Lewis types, those kind of guys, go back to your career, Dwight Freeney's, they, in all your years, Derek Brooks, they wanted reps in preseason.
Absolutely did. I can go back to my playing days. And Coach Knoll with the Steelers, that steel curtain, and saying, hey, you guys are going to get 3 series in this preseason game. And defense, we'd go in there 3 and out, and Jack Ham going up to Coach Knoll. It was only 9 plays. I need to get some more work. I need to be out there. I need to give me another series. Those guys wanted to play and get ready. We played a preseason game my second year, Colin, in Dallas, the last preseason game. We're playing against the Cowboys. They beat us on the last drive of the game. Rodgers Staubach is in the game. At the end of the game, Jack Lambert is out there, Joe Green, 50 passes to win the game, the last preseason game. I know it's different now and times have changed, but that was the competitive nature of those guys, and they wanted to get ready and wanted to be ready for opening day.
We have a bunch of quarterbacks that have changed teams, Matt Stafford, Jameis Winston. And Tony, I believe this in life. There are just certain players that fit is underrated, that some personalities don't work. I think you and Peyton was so intense and you were more relaxed. I thought you guys were a perfect personality match. I thought Mora was too intense and Peyton was too intense. He's a little bit of a teeth clencher. And I did think your sort of more mentoring style, more of a teacher than a yeller, was great with Peyton. I think Belichick and Brady are both very willful, very focused, very driven. I love their personalities. And Montana was coachable. Walsh was a great teacher. It worked. But it doesn't always work. And I'll give you an example. I love Bruce Arians, but he's a very high-risk coach. No biscuit, risk it, no biscuit. Jameis Winston tends to be a little loose, a little bit of a gunslinger. I didn't think he and Arians were a good match. Sean Peyton tends to be very detail-oriented, more about manipulation, efficiency. And so I watched Jameis Winston, and I'm like, I think this is actually a better fit than Tampa. And I just want your interpretation of what I just said. Is it a bunch of nonsense, or does it make sense?
No, you're on the right track. It's like a marriage. And, how people always say opposites attract, and this man was together with this woman and they were perfect. And a lot of times it's the same way with the coach and the quarterback. You learn from other people. You take on other characteristics. And sometimes you need that. If your tendency is to be a let's go for broke gambler, and your coach is that too, you're going to have that type of personality out on the field. And I think Jameis is going to benefit from Sean Payton saying, no, we've got to, it's kind of the conversation I had with Peyton. We've got to rope this in a little bit. And then there are some quarterbacks who Tua Tagovailoa is very careful with the ball. He might need Bruce Arians to say, hey, you know what? You got to go downfield with it sometimes. We've got to see your ability. So it's getting that match and knowing your players. And sometimes I always felt the coach had to adjust. Okay, if I read this into Peyton, I've got to adjust and get it out of him. That's my job. It's not his job to adjust to my personality.
Well, I think Arians adjusted to Brady at the bye week.
He absolutely did. And I think Tom was saying, hey, we can do things a little differently. This is what I'm used to. If you let me do what I'm good at, we're going to be in great shape. And to their credit, Bruce and Byron Leftwich, I saw a different type of offense in the second half of the year. I'm seeing a different type of offense now. What we saw Thursday night was not what we saw the first game of the year last year. And they've adjusted and taken advantage of what Tom does well.
It's interesting. At the college level, Tony, coaches have control. They control the personnel. Nick Saban's personality, to me, is more controlling. It's a better fit in the college than it is in the NFL. Belichick has control. Pete Carroll does, but they've also had sort of odd drafts. Bill's really struggled at some positions in the draft. Pete's missed on some first rounders, several. You feel more, you could have worked in college, but you always felt like a pro coach where control wasn't that valuable to you. Go back to your career. Because I see a lot of these coaches now, all college coaches want control. But some of these NFL guys, they want more say in personnel. Heck, Aaron Rodgers now says he wants say in personnel. I'm not a fan of that. What you tell me, did it matter to you? How did you and Polian make it work?
People ask that question all the time, especially lately. Who had control of the draft? Who had the final say? Who had the final say on the 53? I honestly don't know, Colin. I'm sure Bill did, but, we would have discussions. And I knew Bill was not going to draft a player that I didn't want. I was not going to keep a guy on the team that Bill didn't want. And it was a partnership. And I don't understand this. I've got to be right. It's got to be my way. I've got to have control. When I started coaching in 1981, Chuck Noll, I went into his office and I said, what am I supposed to do? I've never coached before. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. And he said, your job is to help your players play better. And it was so simple, but that is the formula. And so I always felt that way. I don't have to have control. I have to help my players play better. Now, Bill Polian and Rich McKay before that, to their credit, they got to know what kind of players would flourish well under me. And so, hey, don't draft the player that needs a full-time babysitter. Don't draft the player that's not motivated. That's not what Tony's good at. He's going to coach him. He's going to work him. He's going to help him. But certain types of guys are going to flourish here. Certain types of guys aren't. And once we understood that, we were in great shape.
Did you ever have a player that you looked at and you went to Bill or McKay and said, this is going to work for me? And maybe there was pushback, but you knew innately, Tony, this kid works for me. That is exactly what I want.
Yeah, and we got to know that. We had what we called a buck filter when I was at Tampa, and we did the same thing. What does a Colt look like? And so Bill Polian got to know that very well. And so the guys who might have been off other people's radar, hey, Bob Sanders, he is small, he's undersized, but man, he is a fiery guy. He's attitude guy. And, and some schools would be that way. We had a lot of success with the Iowa guys because we knew they were coached a certain way. They were ready to go. We knew what we were going to get. And I think that's really important. Who's going to flourish in your system?
So you must look at the Green Bay situation. I know I do, and I just can't figure it out. I'll tell you, Tony, I wouldn't want control over personnel at Fox. I can barely figure out how to host a show and a podcast. I don't want it. When you look at the Green Bay situation, do you just roll your eyes at it?
I do. And, as great as Peyton Manning was and as much as he wanted to be involved in things, he understood that his focus was not the same as the organization's focus. I was the same way as the head coach. My focus was on winning this year. Bill Polian had to focus on 3, 4, and 5 years down the line. So I had to defer to him. I couldn't say, hey, we've got to make this decision and it's got to be this way. I'll give you a classic example. Our Super Bowl year, the year before we came close, don't win it. Edgerrin James is up. He's a free agent. And Bill Polian comes to me and says, Edgerrin's going to get $6 or $7 million open market. But if we sign him, I can tell you right now, Tony, we're going to lose Dwight Freeney, Dallas Clark, and Reggie Wayne 2 or 3 years down the road. We won't be able to re-sign him. Or we can let Edgerrin go. It's a great year for the draft. We'll either have Lawrence Maroney, Maurice Jones-Drew, or Joseph Adai, and we'll re-sign those other 3 guys, and we'll be competitors for a long time. What do you want to do? Well, my first inclination is, hey, we got to win this year. Let's re-sign Edgerrin. If we can do it, we can squeeze it in. Let's do it. But then when you really think about it down the road, that's not the right thing to do. I was focused in on that year. I didn't know the running backs coming up. Well, sure enough, we let Edgerrin go. We draft Joseph Adai. He plays great for us. We win the Super Bowl. And long after I'm retired, they're still in contention for a Super Bowl.
Andy Reid, I always had this theory, is that Belichick dominates coaches that have a certain system. What he struggles with is quarterbacks that can move. He struggled when he played Cam. And he struggles with coaches who don't have a system. They're play designers. So Andy Reid has given Belichick problems. He doesn't have a system. He gets his players and he designs plays for his players. That Bill is very good at film study. This is what you do. I'm taking it away from you. Belichick is largely viewed as the best football coach of our lives. And you and Bill had some real struggles. Were there things that Bill did that you felt you had success with? I mean, you were in the rare position that you had a quarterback that was as good as his. And so a lot of your games with Bill, Tony, they were chess matches. They were real chess matches. And if you could take the audience to this, you had some success against him. Andy Reid. The list is very short. And did you enjoy those? Were those sleepless nights? Take me back to those.
No, I loved it because it was a challenge. And what it was, you had to adapt and you had to react. He was not going to give you what you expected. He was not going to give you what you saw the last 4 or 5 weeks. He was not going to give you what you saw the last time you played them. So towards the end of our time going against each other, that was always my speech to our team. We don't know what we're going to get. If we're close at the end of the first quarter, we'll see what their game plan is. Now we've got to be able to adapt and change ours. And so that became the philosophy. And it was a challenge. I loved it. He was great to go against because he made you a better coach.
Yeah. I remember hearing that from somebody inside the organization. He liked going up against you. He loved going up against Pete Carroll. Bill liked the intellectual challenge. I mean, his mom spoke like 7 languages. You knew you were getting something, you were getting something pretty high end from Bill.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment that you walked off the field and thought, I got the best of Bill? I'm not going to publicly say it, but I got the best of him.
No, you always felt like you were fortunate when you won the games. We knew probably from 2003 on that these were going to be close games. They were going to go back and forth. You were going to have to plus. You couldn't have letdowns. For me, the ultimate was we're down 21-3 in the AFC Championship game. And we had talked about it. Hey, they're going to come out with some things that we aren't ready for. We've got to keep it close and adapt. Well, we wanted it to be closer than 21-3, but we had to adapt, and we did, and we fought back through it, and we won. We took the lead with a minute left in the game. And I remember telling our team afterwards, that is how you have to play. I'm proud of you guys for hanging in there and not giving up. And that's when you felt like, man, we did a good job today.
There's a bunch of young quarterbacks. Some will play immediately. Some, like Trey Lance, have a better situation. They can slowly be kind of moved into the offense. What, as a fan, that's what I am. In the end, I'm a broadcaster, but I'm a fan. When you looked at young quarterbacks, what was an early sign, either they were yours or you were facing them, an early sign that, oh, that's a little bit of a problem. This isn't going to work. Or the opposite. Oh, he does that well. Are there traits, Tony, that are problematic that you spot that just historically in your 35, 40 years, like if a guy can't do blank, it's not going to work?
I always felt there were two things NFL quarterbacks needed. They needed, number one, they need poise and the ability to just filter everything out and do what they do in the high pressure situations. And then number two, they need accuracy. I remember I played on the 49er team when Joe Montana was a rookie, and he came in and you saw that he was so cool and calm and collected. And then every ball was right between the numbers. And so even when he wasn't playing early on, you said, man, this guy, he's got that. He's got the poise. He's got the accuracy. You look at Peyton Manning, Brady, all the great ones. They have that. They can put the ball right where they want it, and they have poise. Now, you can see a quarterback who's got a lot of other things. When they're not accurate or they tend to get rattled, then you say, I don't know if he's going to be a great NFL quarterback.
So I said this. I've been a huge defender of Lamar Jackson. And one of the things I've said is, listen, he cares so deeply. He's not perfect. Okay, Eli and Brady couldn't move. I'm not looking for perfect. But he's never distracted. His body has changed. He cares so much about winning and losing. And I wonder if you coached him, he's a playmaker. My argument is, okay, he's not a great up the sideline thrower, but nobody else can move like him. Would you ever be uncomfortable with the times he runs or the hits he takes? How would you feel about Lamar Jackson?
No, he's going to learn, and he's so super competitive that he is running into traffic. He's taking hits that he doesn't have to take, and he'll learn not to do that. But I would love to coach Lamar Jackson and have him be my quarterback. He gives the defense so much headache. There's things you can't do against Lamar Jackson on defense. He may not have the super accuracy that I'm looking for, but his mobility more than makes up for that. So, I think he's going to be special. I think he's going to win a Super Bowl before he's finished.
How would you defend him?
You have to keep him in the pocket. You've got to rush under control. You've got to make him throw the ball outside the numbers, and you got to keep him from running right now. It sounds easy, but it's not.
When you say, because I agree, have him throw outside the numbers is his weak spot. Do you jam the middle of the field up, that you give him the corners?
Yeah, you play a lot of inside technique. You play your zones heavy inside. You make him throw the ball out there, and you have a lot of eyes on him. When he does run, you can come and attack him.
You ever miss coaching?
I miss it from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock on Sunday. I don't miss it the rest of the week.
It's great seeing you, Tony. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, Tony.
I think what's happened, I think a bunch of my kids have jumped on the Wi-Fi here now. So, yeah. All right.
We're good.
Great to talk to you, Colin.